Welcome back to Stay Tuned. I'm Tony Angelo, and today we're digging into one of the raddest projects we've ever built on this channel, my SikeClone, which is inspired by the legendary 1991 GMC Syclone. They were the nastiest, fastest trucks in the whole world to 60 miles an hour in 1991, and they stayed as the fastest truck in the world until 2 years ago. They were mind blowers. They went 0 to 60 in about 4.3 seconds. They cost an arm and a leg. And instead of buying one on our channel, we built a down and dirty, low buck junkyard version that's actually even quicker than that thing for about 6,500 bucks. Now that we have exceeded our goal of matching a stock Syclone, it's time to turn this thing up even more. We've got a whole slew of parts we're gonna throw at it, and this engine is really on its last legs. But it's raining, it still runs pretty strong, so we're gonna take it out, have some fun with it, and show you the magic of the SikeClone. Let's go. Please take a second and go over to the Stay Tuned merch store. We've got a rack of shirts from the original Stay Tuned shirt, Angelo's Gym. We're gonna lose the shop, and there's lots of stickers too. All right, it's a little bit soggy out here, but I took this thing out anyway. This engine is on its last legs after really hammering on it time and time again. But I wanna show you how insane it must have been to have one of these trucks back in the day, because they're just fast whenever. You could have pulled up at a stoplight in the rain, you know, hot out, cold, it doesn't matter. All-wheel drive, turbo power, you would have smoked absolutely everything in the 90s that pulled up next to you. And here's how we built my SikeClone. It was very straightforward, okay? I went out and I bought a $1,200 1988 Chevy S10 4x4. Very basic, short bed, short cab, 2.8 liter V6 manual truck. Because you need the 4x4 frame, because that's what the Syclones had. Then I went out and spent 800 bucks on an all-wheel drive Astrovan drivetrain, the 4.3 liter V6, the 4L60E, and most importantly, the all-wheel drive transfer case. Now with V8 swap mounts, that all bolts right into this frame. You have to shorten the drive shaft that goes from the transfer case to the front diff, and then you are off and running. Now then you have a non-turbo one, so you're off and running. And then I added a $680-ish Amazon turbo kit, a big old Holley carburetor, and a giant fuel pump, and we were off and running. Right out of the box, this thing ran 0 to 60 in the mid-5s. We slapped in a Corvette transmission servo, dyno tuned it, tweaked it, and boosted it up a bit. I'll show you why this thing is the absolute coolest. My left foot down to the floor. Pump it up good. Wow. So even in the rain, all you have to do is put your left foot to the floor, right foot, get the boost up until the brakes feel like they're about to break free, stomp on the gas, let the brakes go, and this thing just takes off. In the rain, in hot weather, anywhere. It's an absolute animal because the response is killer. You're already in boost and it's all-wheel drive. This thing is an absolute train. It pulls like a freight train. It's hilarious. And listen, we heard the engine. We wanted to go even faster. We took it to the dyno. We accidentally turned the boost up to about 18 PSI because why not? We like to party. And I think we frazzled the rings a little bit. It's definitely breathing really hard out of the valve covers, and it's still ripping. So what I'm gonna do now, turn it up a little bit more, have some fun with it, and then inside the shop, we have a whole mess of parts. We've got a camshaft, valve springs, head gaskets, head studs, and a torque converter. And once this thing is built for boost with that new junkyard motor, it's going to go even faster. The goal is to go 0 to 60 in the 3-second range, which is bananas. Nah. Yeah. I parked the SikeClone, not exactly able to explode the thing, but it sounds hurt. It's time for an upgrade. We went out and grabbed this thing. This is a 1993 4.3 liter V6. If you get a 4.3 V6, they change a million different times, and you have to get the ones that are going to work with the parts that you've got. For the camshaft that we ordered and the intake manifold that we already have to convert this to carburetor, we had to get, I believe, a 91 to 94, the later ones being the best version. I spent $300 on this entire engine setup. It looks cleaner than the last one. It comes with the accessory drive, which I'll probably give to Zimmy for a V8 S10 he's building up. It was swapped into a Jeep with some kind of 4 or 5 speed. So it came with a clutch and flywheel with a 10 spline. That'll go on the shelf. We'll use that someday. It's basically brand new. And pulling the valve cover off, it's just nice and clean, looks killer. And it's a great starting point. And again, it's $300. $300. You can't get too much for $300, but apparently you can get an entire 4.3 liter engine in what looks to be pretty great shape. And it's a nice starting point. And we're going to just straight tear this thing apart and get ready to build it up for boost on the cheap. All right. So once I knew that the engine was hurt in the Syclone, I probably could have used it as an opportunity to put an LS in it with a turbo or a small block or even the more modern V6, the LV3. I just felt like we weren't done here yet with the old tried and true 4.3 liter. It's been so awesome. We're all set up for it. A new one is $300, so I just wanted to get another one and just keep turning it up. Down the road, I want to get this truck to be like a really fast, maybe drag and drive truck, keep it all-wheel drive, and have a ton more fun with it, but I couldn't just bail out this early because the 4.3 has sort of earned my respect at this point. It's been killer. I couldn't kill it, so I just don't want to bail out right now. And we didn't do anything to the other engine. All we did was bolt on a turbocharger setup that we got off the internet. So we were limited. We could only run a little bit of boost. You know, it was never going to make all that much power. It was incredible. It went 0 to 60 in, you know, technically 4.4 seconds in the magazine time with the rollout, 4.2. And that's awesome. But I think with a little work, we can go even faster.
Incredible. So this was a set of small block Chevy stamped valve covers, center bolt that Tony had laying on the shelf. And we can't get valve covers easily that are taller to clear the roller rockers that we're going to be putting in this thing. So we hacked them up. A couple of precise measurements and a little scratch notes here and the disc sander and whatnot. So there was this baffle inside of this valve cover here. And in order for the bolt holes to line up with the bosses in the cylinder heads, this had to get removed. But it was crimped on. Metal was kind of rolled over, so I just ran the die grinder around it. And now we have a set of V6 valve covers. TIG weld them up and be good to go.
Accessory drive popped right off. As we get in here, I'm just going to tear off the intake manifold, the cylinder heads. We'll check back in and start talking about how to make some horsepower. Now, I'm going to take the pistons out too. I've got the cylinder heads and intake all pulled off. Everything looks halfway decent in here. Not quite as clean as underneath the valve cover, but you know, I can still see a little bit of a hatch here in the cylinder bores. This means it's not too worn down. There's not a huge ridge. Again, not a ton of wear. And next thing I'm going to do is pull the harmonic balancer off, get into this timing cover, and yank out the old camshaft. This is the balance shaft. This is what they call a balance shaft engine. So up here, if you see an extra thing just spinning around, it's just a big cast weight. It's supposed to help this 6-cylinder run a bit smoother because it's not inherently balanced like a V8 is. So that's pretty much it. It looks killer. I want to get in there, get all of the pistons out with their rods, and then start getting ready to hone these cylinders and fit some serious rings, because between that camshaft and a proper set of turbo-ready piston rings, this thing's going to make some serious power. Might just spin the motor over. Yeah, that'll happen to you. Sweet. Okay, so before I spin it over, take the pan off. I'm going to remove this lifter tray. So this is a roller camshaft setup from the factory, which a lot of late 80s, 90s stuff pretty much all became roller in the good engines. And to keep the lifters aligned with the camshaft, they have kind of the tops that are cut out, which is cool. And then they just ride in this tray, which is kind of like the LS setup. So I'm going to keep these trays. I'm going to toss the lifters. We have new ones. They're all pulling out super nice, which makes me happy, which means the bores are straight and nothing weird is going on. Save these rails. Pan looks all right, just a little bit hammered. You want a little side-to-side clearance, that's reasonable. I'm gonna look just quickly for any signs of heat or on the bottom of the rods on the big end, and any weird, wonky, too much play scenarios. Side to side, okay. Up and down, very bad. Right now, oil pump's coming off, this gas is coming off, we're gonna get the camshaft out. Keep everything separate and then start knocking the pistons and their rods right out of the bores and then start thinking about honing these cylinders and fitting some serious rings. There it goes. All right, so it looks like regular V8 style crankshaft, camshaft. This is twice as big as that thing, but this is the weirdo balance shaft. Gonna kind of leave it in there, I guess. It does get indexed specifically to the crank and the camshaft, because if not, these giant weights would add more vibration instead of reducing some, so I'll make sure we get it all dialed back in. This has certainly seen some wear and some mileage. That's a dot, that's a dot. I don't know what this thing's doing. Wow. Good to know. It's crazy. You know what, we'll just leave that right where it is. We don't need to take it out. And there's some kind of crazy bearing behind it. So we're just gonna let it ride. Nice. So cute. Bearing looks pretty solid. Like that. This motor might have been rebuilt at some point. All right, bolt this thing back in before I forget. Keep on moving. This side is decidedly dirtier than the other one. So this engine's never been apart. There's no marks on any of the rod ends or caps or anything. So I'm just gonna come through and just give a little mark. What you wanna make sure is that these rod ends don't get flipped around when you put everything back together. If you wanna look for the tangs in the bearings, you can probably figure it out. But this is just a nice, easy way of going, okay, that's number one. I know the notch points it forward, and then where it says one, I matched it up with this one, done. Nothing to figure out. Keep it simple. Engine building for dum-dums. Let's go. What I like to do is take the rod nuts, back them off, and then break those free while they're still connected, so there's no crazy moment of Hey, that bearing doesn't look too bad. And make sure I catch it on the way out. And there's one piston. Barb's on his way in. I'm gonna make him catch the rest of them. He just doesn't know it yet. Ready?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we get a hammer. All right, it's a boy.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Not the first time.
Obviously, like the really big limiting factor making a bunch of horsepower with these motors is this split crank pin. You see this here? See that? So on a V8, it's just one big journal that goes all the way across. This thing is just this little ding dong here, paper thin between them, and connecting this to this. So obviously that's what's going to break. I think you can clear 500 horsepower, and that gives up the ghost. So, you know.
I bet we'll find out.
Yeah. Stay tuned on that one. Okay, I've got the 4.3 Junkyard motor all torn apart. Zach is here. He's going to do scrub a dub on the pistons and rods and everything else and trying to get all this grime off those things. And the way we're going to make a bunch more performance, number one, this sweet Comp Cam's camshaft. It's like over 500 lift. We'll talk about that thing later. To go along with that, I've got valve springs that need to be upgraded to handle all the crazy ramp and lift that thing's going to provide. And beyond that, I'm going to take the stock rings, toss them directly into the trash. I've got some steel rings here from Summit. I'm going to gap these for boost. We're going to do a quick hone on the cylinders, get everything back together. And then we've got head studs and new head gaskets, and this thing should be ready for hopefully, what, 30, 45 pounds of boost?
Let's start with 20.
Let's start with 20. Grab a socket. Come over here. Whack it. That's it. Done. That's it. Done. Move on to the next one. Does it not have valve seals here? What am I looking at? That's a valve seal. That's not a valve seal.
Yeah. And it's not.
All right, so after a little bit of research and calling Larry, our engine guy over at Roberts Engine Development, he told me that this positive seal that's on the intake valve here is normal, but the exhaust valve should have come with an umbrella style seal, and ours have literally nothing on them. They're not stuck in the valves. They're just gone. I'm gonna run over to him. He said he's probably got a set for me. We're gonna double check that we have all the clearance we need with these seals and the heads for the 510 lift we're gonna need. And come on back, slap some stuff together, and keep on rocking. While I do that, Zach is gonna start yanking the current engine out of the SikeClone so we can be productive. Right?
Yep.
Attaboy. Pull that sucker out of there.
This one goes. Yeah, this is the one. This one goes straight up. See that relief?
Smart thinking.
Try and make a little bit more of a mess first. Solid.
I took a run over to our local engine builder, Larry at Roberts Engine Development. He's killer. He built the engine in my Firebird. That thing is incredible. Just to give this a once over, just to confirm, I was like, there's nothing on the exhaust valves. And he said, yeah, they should have come with a positive seal, which is what we have here on the intake, and an umbrella style seal on the exhaust. And they are in fact gone. So he gave me some other positive seals we're gonna run on here. And I had him check just to do it, throw a retainer and a keeper on here and measure the possible lift on these things. He said everything looks fine. We can definitely run over 500 lifts. So we're good there. But the thing he did say is that the valve guides in this thing are shot. You can't really see, but I'm rocking this valve back and forth this way. If we really wanted to get serious, we could bring him over to Larry. He would machine in new guides and make them 100%, but we don't have time for that or money. We don't want to spend the money on it. I am going to pull the heads off of the 4.3 that's in the truck now and see if they're much better. If they are, we will build up those heads with the new springs and stuff. But we're going to just keep on rocking. Zach is pulling this engine out, and we'll just get closer and closer.
think before I start working on stuff now, I'm just gonna like cover the floor in kitty litter. And then it'll just catch it and I don't have to put it down later. Those things.
We have removed all the mounts and the bolts and the other fluids and stuff.
You think?
We think.
If we didn't, we'll find out.
I have to learn by doing over here. That fit through there in a way that makes sense? Or do we need like a sub chain? Oh yeah, that's it.
Give it a little tug. I'll give it a little wiggle. We still gotta pull that bolt.
Okay, we do not have enough room to lift the engine up high enough so that the engine mount, which is like a big U-channel bracket, raises over the pedestal that's attached to the frame and lets us move it forward. So we're gonna just take this off the block and then we'll slide it forward and get it up. It's gotta come forward, off the transmission, basically split the engine and transmission apart, and then we can lift it up. But we can't do both right now.
Boo.
Burp.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get ready to start honing the new used junkyard motor and fitting the rings. Zach is gonna pull apart the old 4.3 that has served us so well. This thing is an absolute champion, but we may need to use, we obviously have to use the distributor and the intake manifold and the accessory drive off this thing, and very clearly this beautiful turbocharger, but we may need to use the cylinder heads too, as ours are pretty worn out. So he's gonna tear that apart. You can get rocking on that. I'm gonna start working on this.
Yeah. I'm start. I'm so excited.
Say, what?
I'm so excited.
Attaboy.
Oh boy. That's a good one. There we go. Dude.
We're gonna need exhaust gaskets. The one had a blowout.
All right, and stay tuned. We're lunging on pizza. It's kind of our thing. Zach went to pick this beautiful thing up from a local shop. That's a 10 out of 10 delivery service, buddy. Look at the security on the pizza. Zero cheese movement. This pizza was actually bought for us by a guy named Iverson Bedard, who hit our new pizza button. Some people had asked, how do we just send you some pizzas? And we appreciate it big time. There's a link in the description if you want to send us a pie.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Thanks, bud. We're gonna dig in.
Let's play.
At some point. So I have the head that Zach just yanked off of the SikeClone motor, and I'm gonna see if these are any better. Like I said, the ones I took over to Larry to check out, he said that, you know, they were pretty worn out. And if we wanted to, he would machine them for new valve guides, but I don't really want to wait or spend any of that money. So I'm just gonna knock these out and get an idea of what we're looking at. Boy, they're a lot tighter. If you come and look, remember the last one? These don't budge. These seem quite a bit better. Same on this intake valve, just barely any wear on them. So I think we're gonna stick with the heads that were in the truck. They just seem to be less worn out. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna then just focus on these. I'll pull the rest off just to confirm, but that's gotta be the way to go. Cool. Very fancy. All right, now I'm gonna go throw this in the parts washer. Already Summit parts washer and let it get cleaned up. Oh, you know what? This is that's a Zach problem. Let her sit like that for a while. Come in there and scrub it.
This thing pumps like.
But he was just saying before.
Like I couldn't get the little one to stick.
Get it. Keep trying. Barb lapped the valves in this head old school style with some compound and a hand tool just to make sure everything was sealing 100%. So obviously we're not going to spend the money to have this thing properly bored and honed or anything crazy like that. I'm just going to hit it with a little ball hone. This is a 320 grit hone specifically for the 4-inch bore size. And I'm gonna just run it in with the drill. It's a lot of arm speed, not a lot of drill speed is the idea. You're trying to create that crosshatch. These cylinders look pretty good. I'm just gonna basically give it a new sealing surface for the new rings to mate up with. Freiberger told me diesel fuel is a great cutting agent, as opposed to people tell you to either use the honing fluid they sell or like WD. So we're gonna rock with this. I pushed the crankshaft journals out of the way. I'll do that on each one as we go back and forth, but it shouldn't take too long if you look ahead of time. I'm gonna get a shot real quick in here. They look clean. There's just, you know, glaze on them. We're just gonna knock that off, take this ridge off, and get ready to send this thing with the new rings. Yeah, it worked real good.
Let me see.
And then you clean it off with more diesel. Lost that guy. Didn't need him.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
I can see my reflection on the other side of the shop. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Right?
Both things are gonna seal real.
Grab that light, Zim. There's one in the cart. So a little more diesel fuel.
White.
Wipe it out.
That's beautiful.
That's pretty good.
It's almost like you know what you're doing. Is that how quick it is? It's just that?
It does not take very long, yeah. I thought it would maybe go another one through it.
It's like
But yeah,
immediate.
it's like, it goes quick. This is a 320 grit and they get more abrasive, so I gotta imagine those things just cut, but I feel... Turns out, that's pretty perfect.
Freiberger knows a thing.
Yeah, Freiberger knows a thing or two. It's kind of amazing, it's kind of terrifying.
Whoa.
What's up?
The other side? Oh yeah. They like don't look that bad, and then you look and you're like, oh.
Turn that thing to me a little bit.
You want to roll that back here so you do it over the.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like I was saying yesterday, the old pre-kitty litter.
Right?
Yeah, that's your plan.
I guess a lot.
You're gonna hit me with an electric fly swatter? You can do it. You can do it, I dare you.
Tony! Barb said hit him with an electric fly swatter.
All right, Zach's gonna wipe those out. Put a little bit of clean engine oil in each cylinder. And we're gonna talk about fitting the proper rings for big time boost. Okay, so an important component of any turbo build are the piston rings. Basically, the deal is a factory naturally aspirated engine, non-turbo, is gonna come with a pretty tight ring gap, and as you add a bunch of boost, those rings are actually gonna meet in there, have no more room from all the heat and fuse everything together. They can break a piston, they can seize everything up, they can just annihilate an engine. So when you're doing a turbo setup, you want to get a decent set and get some steel rings if you can afford them. We kind of spent a couple bucks on these. These are Summit Racing gas ported piston rings, but they're steel. The upper ring is steel, which means it's a little bit better for detonation. It'll handle a little bit more abuse. I'm not exactly sure who makes them. It's a mystery, but they're a nice piece. We spent 175 bucks on these bad boys. The way gas-ported rings work is that it allows combustion pressure to get around the ring and force it out, making an even tighter seal as the compression cycle is happening, which is pretty cool. They have gas-ported pistons too. They have little holes all the way around them, and they lead down into the backside of the top ring. Same thing, you shove the piston up, all of this pressure goes in and pushes the ring out for a super nasty seal, meaning you're gonna have really great compression. And that makes lots of horsepower. All right, I have this Summit brand ring grinder. I'm gonna get it set up, refresh myself on how to use one of these bad boys. And what we are going for ring gap wise, if you're wondering, we're gonna do 24 thousandths on the top ring, 22 thousandths on the bottom ring. It's quite a bit looser than an NA motor, and that's fine. There may be a touch more breathing and blow by. We're good with that because we had boost way, way up. It's not gonna explode our motor, because we'll have enough clearance as these things grow and expand from all the heat and pressure that it shouldn't lock anything up. All right. Okay, so when you are measuring rings, you're just gonna work cylinder to cylinder, and you wanna get it, kind of just stick it in there, pop it in with your fingers. It has to be very level in the bore when you measure it. So I take a piston, and I'll just pop it in until, usually like the skirt starts, like the top of the piston stops, so I know, okay, that's level in there. Pop it out, and I'll have a nice place to measure it from. They give you a little bit extra room. You're gonna, these are called file to fit rings. That's what we're gonna do.
Where do they start at?
Once we get them fitted, we will put them out in order, grab the pistons, load them on, and slam them in. All right, I am using this sweet little Summit ring grinder or ring filer. This is what I would probably recommend for someone like us who's gonna do this maybe a couple times a year. It's not like a crazy pro piece with a micrometer on it and a big dedicated battery. It's a nice little fixture. It lets you get this thing on nice and square. Now you just put your drill battery on it. Get your cordless drill, stick it on here. So it's like nice and repeatable, but it's not for guys that are gonna do 200 of these a year, but it's pretty solid. It's working well so far. I'm gonna take a little off, have Zach measure it, and go from there. I'll just take a file and make sure the edges are flat. Wipe any of the junk off of it. Just on the tips. Just address the edge here. Hand it to Zach. See what happens.
There. This is really satisfying. I'm glad I got picked for the job. More. Just a touch.
Okay, just a touch. What's nice is we bought kit number GP 4064, which is for an 8-cylinder. So I have 2 chances to screw this up, and it doesn't matter.
I'm gonna try that one on another cylinder.
What's up? A little much? Man, I just gave it a kiss. I'm making a coffee.
Should have been a peck, not a kiss.
Yeah, all right. Get in there and really look at how. Got one?
Fits in there.
Yeah?
We're gonna put in some new valve seals here. I cleaned the heads. I did a little lap job on the valve seats and on the valves.
A lap dance.
Lap valve dance. Yeah, I did one of them. Put a little assembly lube on the valve stem. Put it in through the bottom here. And then put some oil on the pedestal. A little bit more in the valve seal. And then use the valve, use the valve stem itself to sort of align the seal. Just
Still trying to get this on the head.
tap it on.
This first hole, too little tight.
Smooth as can be.
All right, it's time to assemble our fitted rings onto our stock pistons. In the instructions, basically, they're going to have you put the gap of the ring in several different positions. towards basically you're going to do 180 out from the gap on the top ring to the second ring. And then as the oil control rings have sort of two gaps because there's two different rings, you stick them in different directions. So I'm going to get everything on there without breaking it, hopefully, and orient everything perfectly, and we'll be ready to just about slap everything back in. Zach is still cleaning up the block, the sealing surface, the camshaft, the cylinder boards, and I'll put some fresh oil down on everything, and we're pretty close to putting this thing together. I've finished assembling our stock piston and rods with the new Summit gas-ported steel rings, regular cast secondary ring, and the oil control rings. So these things are ready to install. They all go in a very specific direction. You've got 5 different rings really with the oil control stuff, and they all go in one specific orientation. And as with anything you don't do every day, the first one took me 10 minutes and the last one took me like 30 seconds. But now we can cram them in our 4.3 and finish up that short block before dinner. Still early. It's time to put this motor together. I've got all 6 of these things lined up. Piston and rod combos with those sweet new rings. The old bearings look just fine. I'm going to slather some assembly lube on them, and we're going to send these things home. Summit makes a sweet ring compressor instead of the old adjustable guy.
Try and like hold together in your hand.
Make sure you hold it up there flush. So I'm going to just pop this lower cap off. You can put, if you're really worried about it or you're doing this by yourself, you can put a little bit of hose on the ends of these rod bolts so that they don't wreck anything. We're not going to do that because there's 2 of us here. Just make sure the crankshaft is out of the way. You can deal with that later. Slide this into place. We've got lots of oil on the cylinders already. Yeah, this goes first. Obviously this goes first. That was a test I was doing for you guys. And they kind of taper in. You need to squeeze them as they pop in. Make sure not to catch your gloves in there.
Well, they won't be doing anything.
They won't do any good.
Yep.
All right. Pop, pop. Okay. Hold on. Top one's not in there yet. Yeah. You just start the rings into this large taper. It makes it much easier, and then it will. You make sure you hold this down. Zach, go ahead and send that thing home. Go ahead. That's it. I will turn this up. Boom. Beauty. 1. That's 1. You put assembly lube on here?
Yes. I did indeed.
All right, group's going forward. Tap her in. Okay, slow down, slow down. Okay, go ahead. That's it. Looking good. That's one assembled short block right there.
What does every junkyard motor need that's getting boost? ARP head studs that are worth just as much as we paid for this motor. Right? That's pretty accurate.
I'm not an accountant, but that sounds right.
Head stud. Plus, they look really cool.
They look really cool.
That's like my favorite part about head studs. Most of the time, they're not necessary, but they look really cool.
Yep, just like a small block.
That's why I feel like I'm at home. Did it work?
Yeah.
Nice.
I totally meant to do that. Installing a set of just regular stock valve springs. We're waiting on the right ones to come in the mail. These should be at least enough to check for push rod length and probably fire it up and run it around a little bit. It's not going to kill anything. But we will need nastier valve springs to keep up with the lift on that camshaft, the more steep ramp angles, the more RPM we're going to turn, all that stuff. We do want stiffer valve springs. So they're on their way. Just kind of a snafu getting the right ones in here. And keep on rocking. Keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get a cylinder head on there yet. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're keeping it pretty low key as far as cost. One thing I wanted to make clear, so our goal was to see if we could go as fast as the Syclone or faster on the cheap, right? Feel like we did that in the last episode. For about $6,500, we got this thing to go 0 to 60 according to magazine style time on our drag in 4.21 seconds. That's with 1 foot of rollout. And their best time ever on a magazine was 4.3 seconds. So that feels pretty great. And we were all in about $6,500. Now, as we get faster and faster with this thing, which is obviously our goal, we're going to continue with sort of the low buck vibe. Probably won't be so concerned with matching a Syclone because, well, we already did it.
Yeah.
All in this rebuild with the new motor, I would guess. Camshaft, roller, you know, $1,500.
Sounds reasonable.
We'll have Barb add it all up.
Yeah, he's a numbers guy.
Part man, part accountant. All right, it's time to drop the first cylinder head down.
Is that the right one?
Doesn't matter.
I thought they're marked.
Well,
I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't
well, now that they're built, it doesn't matter.
It's true.
Boom! Really throw them on there.
It's a V again. Da, 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 da.
Just running them in, then we'll torque them down. All right, time to torque them down. We're going to 80 and equal sequences. One. Starting at 40, and we'll do 60, and we'll do 80. Actually, we're starting at 30, and we'll do 55 or something. It is time to put the single most important performance part into this motor, the camshaft. This is from Comp Cams. They actually make a camshaft for the 4.3 liter. It's not cheap. This is $522, and for that price, they should probably give you the whole thing because it feels small. It feels like it should be about this big. Anyway, 6 cylinders. That's all we need right here. This little guy. No big deal. We're going to slam it in there. It is 500 intake, 510 exhaust lift. It is 270, 276 duration, and it is going to be absolutely killer. This is the version for the computer control because the guys at Comp wanted us to run a little bit nicer lobe separation so it won't chop a ton because it's a turbo, meaning there's less overlap. I personally feel like any cam is a turbo cam if you try hard enough, but we're gonna run the one they had. There also is very limited stock. So this guy was on the shelf and now it's in my engine. Grab one of those cam bolts and I'll wiggle it up and slam it in.
Did something.
Okay. The camshafts have 4 degrees of advance built into them, and we're just gonna rock with that because we don't have an adjustable anything. But look at that, like a glove.
Dot, dot, dot.
Boom, boom, boom. Dot, 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 dot thing in the back there. Everybody's happy. We're gonna torque those down to that's totally tight, and then we'll be good to go. Zach's got a fresh set of Comp hydraulic lifters. Go with our camshaft. They're held in by these stock style trays. You can see they have the flat on them, top and bottom. Keeps them looking right while they go up and down. You can soak them if you want. Some people say you don't have to, some people say you do. Doesn't hurt you either way. Unless you do, and then if you don't do it, it would hurt you.
My sweet solid.
Look at that, look at that. All right, same here. Grab that 13 you had before and tighten these things down. Although you'll need a probably shorty. Tight here. We're gonna now measure this thing for push rods. We'll order those up, but we're getting really close to having the long block done. Feeling good, feeling spry.
Feeling dangerous.
Yup. Anytime you assemble a new motor with a camshaft, You really want to measure for push rods. You can't always assume the stock length is going to be right. We have an adjustable push rod checker. It's just an adjustable length push rod. We're going to set it probably close to stock. Put on our new adjustable rocker setup with these sweet comp rockers and see how they fit. Looks pretty good. It's not binding. You want to make sure, you really want to run it through through the whole rotation, watch it push down and up, make sure it's not binding. We will need push rod guides because these don't center themselves, which is easy enough. I have some. But you want to make sure that they have a nice sweep across the valve as they go up and down. I think the ideal is from like here down to here. Back in the base circle. Okay, stop there. So I got a set of 7 200s. Nice comp.
That's a stock one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those won't work.
These won't work because they're the same as stock. Okay, good to know. Just top starter and then we'll work from there.
Nice. Oh, that worked pretty good. That seal looks sexy.
All right, we did it. Our long block is together. We have that killer comp camshaft in there. We've got the proper, beautifully gapped rings, steel ring on top. It's going to love the boost. ARP head studs, new head gaskets. Valves have been hand lapped by old Barb over there. This thing is going to kill. We're waiting on proper length push rods and the right valve springs, and we'll throw this thing in, turn the boost up to 55 pounds, and send it down the drag strip next time. That is it for this episode of Stay Tuned. Thanks for hanging out. I think we are, I'm going to do the math, but I want to say $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 into this whole setup, and I expect maybe another 100 horsepower, and that'll be absolutely killer. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you all next time. I think next time we're doing a 911 with V8.
Sir.
That'll be sweet.